My studio stitched by Susan, and while we wait for YouTube to shout on the horn that I'm on here live, let's catch up. What are you working on today? What are you doing? I'm working on this custom quilt, and I'm getting ready for the grandkids are coming on Saturday evening actually, so effectively Saturday night. And of course the daughter and son-in-law too, but basically the grands. So I am still coming live every day next week. You might have the patter of little feet in some of those episodes too, who knows? Trying to get my face in the decent light. Let's see here. Yeah, it's pretty good. Good enough. Okay, glad you joined me. Amy Fryan. Oh, hi, Amy. Amy's from Ecuador. Are you at home or are you like off at a quilt show right now, Amy? Because you're so often around the world. I feel like I should go back and rename today's episode because I talked about, I think I called it, do you plan your quilting or wing it? And I'm not really talking so much about planning the quilting designs as about planning the stitching sequence a little bit. So I'll probably go back and name that more appropriately. Amy's at home and about to quilt. Awesome. Janice, Renee, good. Okay, I've got this cool custom quilt loaded. It's not a vintage one, but I would say it's classic. The maker has had it for some years, and it's kind of a memory quilt. Some of the blocks have a very tiny, very dainty, handwritten name, signature on them. And I've just realized that I forgot to put my microphone on, so I'll have to stay close to the phone today. All the things that I don't always think of. Anyway, on this quilt, you know, it's always, custom quilting is such a process, and I suspect it's a bit unique for each quilter. And I don't do a ton of it anymore for customers simply because I do so many live things on air with all of you that it's hard to put in days worth of quilting on a project between, and it sort of ties up my machine. So this is a little bit of a treat. Laura, whose quilt this is a longtime client, and so I am doing this for her. How fun. So she and I have already conferred back and forth over, you know, what we're going to put in the basket blocks and the setting triangles and so forth. But as I settle down to begin stitching, a couple of things come to light, and this is kind of the focus of my talk today. Outlining some of these areas and blocks, I'm going to do some stitching in the ditch. Now, we want to keep the time down on this quilt, so I'm not, you know, doing every block, every basket, everything like that stitched in the ditch, but more broader areas. So in particular, this yellow border that runs around the quilt, I'm going to quilt on both sides of that. For one thing, because it defines my basket area and looks pretty from the back of the quilt. And for another, it sort of separates my quilting designs because I'm going to do piano keys. So just evenly spaced lines in this outer green border. And I'm going to have a color thread color change in there as well. That outer border is going to be forest green. Everything else is this kind of caramely gold that you're seeing on the machine. It's kind of a pale gold. So it provides division in all those ways. But, and I can actually show you because I've floated the quilt top. On the back of this quilt, you can perhaps see, I can't really pull it closer to you, this is the little yellow border, and the seams on both sides of it are pressed open. So if you've done stitching in the ditch before, the ditch usually means the seam is pressed to one side, and therefore you've got a bit of a thicker hill, and the other side is lower, and we usually call that the ditch. And so if we stitch right along the junction between those two fabrics, we're catching that single layer, and we're not catching the thick seam allowance layer, right? So that's the exact definition of stitching in the ditch. But in this case, when my seam allowances are pressed open, what happens? There's no actual ditch or higher side. So I don't want to stitch exactly at the juncture of the two fabrics, because what I'll do is catch the threads from the seam is all I'll be catching. And that's not very secure for the quilting, right? So what I'm doing then is stitching slightly on one side. And by slightly, I mean less than 1/16 of an inch, maybe, I don't know, 2 thread widths, as close as I can get pretty reliably without, you know, veering, right? So just a little bit off that seam line. But here's where I wanted to talk about thinking through those steps a little bit, and this will be individual on each quilt. But as I thought through the quilt, and you can see the border up here, so I'll kind of point it out up here. As I thought this through, I was starting to stitch in the ditch with my golden thread, right? And so far I've done the inner side, closest to the baskets. I've stitched in that, I'm gonna say I stitched in the ditch. I stitched beside it, right? You understand that. I have not stitched on the outer side because I realized that when I come to doing my piano keys in green thread, I'm going to want to go like this, across, down, travel, up, you know, right? I'm going to do that zigzaggy. So at the bottom of every one of those keys next to the yellow border is going to be green thread. So thinking that through, I'm like, okay, if I don't stitch on that outer edge of the border with golden thread, but instead I stitch on the green side of my ditch with green thread, then when I do all those nifty little travels, that green thread will look pretty and it will just be overlapping other green thread, as opposed to having a line of yellow stitching and then right above it having this green ziggy-zaggy, right? So this is not rocket science. This is just helpful to think through, and it can make the backing of your quilt look just a little bit more attractive if you think that process through. Let's see what the comments are. Let's see if I can do this without joggling the phone too much. Basket quilts. A few people love basket quilts. Yes, indeed. Part of the challenge on this quilt, by the way, is can you see that there's two different kinds of baskets? This row of 3, they're shaped differently than the row that has 4. So I'm actually doing 2 different designs, fairly simple, not too complex designs in those baskets. By tomorrow, I'll have some quilting done with luck, and I can show you. Let's see, I saw a comment. There we go. Debbie, I tend to plan what I'm going to do, where I'll start, and how I'll move around the quilt. I'm too new at this to wing it. You know, there's real advantages, Debbie, to, as best you can, thinking through. I'm a little bit more of a winger myself. In terms of planning out what I'm going to quilt, I like to have an idea in place, but I like to be not tightly married to it and able to pivot. Sometimes it just happens, for me anyways. Amy, you could chime in because you've done lots of custom quilting. What happens for me is when I translate from what looks good on my plexiglass audition board, or maybe my paper or my Procreate app that I'm drawing on, when it becomes 3-dimensional on the fabric and the batting, I don't always love it. And so I want to be able to pivot. So I don't get too tightly connected to a plan, but like you, Debbie, I do like to have some sense going in of where I'm going with this. So in the case of this quilt, Laura likes feathers, and so we've already plotted, yep, we're going to do a certain amount of feathers in the baskets, and she didn't want super busy quilting, right? So that, you know, narrows down my channel of choices quite a ways. I know I'm not going to be doing any hyper detailed pebble fills, for example, right? I'm not going to be doing any feathers that are this big. So already I've narrowed that down, and because we did, in fact, I drew some things out on the plexiglass sheet and back and forth, and we're still emailing this morning, actually. You know, that still is getting refined, but I have those ideas in place. And one kind of general guideline when I am planning custom quilting is, and this makes it easier, so it's a good thing, I don't like to have too many different things on the quilt. So for example, I'm not going to have feathers and ribbon candy and swirls and straight lines all in the same quilt. I'm going to keep usually about 3 things and maybe even 3 related things. So on this quilt, there is a certain amount of straight lines, a certain amount of feathers, and a certain amount of point-to-point arcs. And that's about it. So even if I pivot what I do exactly in one area, I'm going to draw from those things to inform my decision. I'm not going to branch way out into some totally other different thing, right? It just gets too messy and too busy, and your eye doesn't know where to go, right? It looks better and more cohesive and is easier for you to plan if you just say, I'm going to pick from these 3 sort of themes and use those repeatedly. Size them, scale, whatever you need to do there. Okay, more long comments are coming in. Let's see. Janice, sometimes I will load a quilt and that forces me to make a decision. I have done that too. And I think that's one of my reasons for not fully planning what I'm going to quilt in advance, because I find myself getting too frozen. I can't think of what I like in all the areas, and so then I don't get started. And if I get at least a starting idea in my mind and I start quilting, then the ideas start to flow and I start to think, oh, if this looks good here, that would complement it well. And on I go, and it builds as I go. Okay, let's see. Kirsten is saying, I hope we get to see a picture of the finished quilt. I will do my best to post pictures. Let me ask you guys. Earlier this week, I experimented on last week's wonky quilt. I took some of the pictures and I uploaded them to YouTube in the community tab. Is that fairly easy for you to find? Is that a good way to see the picture so you don't have to exit out of YouTube and go and find me on Facebook or Instagram in order to see pictures? And if that works well, I'll try and do that more in future and just keep posting them here. So when you see me talk about it on YouTube, you know that a few days later I'll post pictures also on YouTube. And Kristen is acknowledging that was a great way. Good, I'll do more of that. Okay, Margaret, Susan, you've made me feel so much better about how I've just been winging it. I'm new to long arming and absolutely love it. Thank you for putting out such good information. You're so welcome. And I'm glad that gives you comfort, Margaret. And I think that, you know, there's as many personalities and ways of doing it as there are individuals. There just are. My good friend Sam of Quilting Curve Studio, she's a planner. She likes to know in advance what she's doing. And she's got her app all organized and she takes her photo and she draws on it and etc. But that doesn't work as well for me. It just doesn't. It paralyzes me to say I've got to have a whole plan first. And the truth is, neither way is wrong, right? So good that we can quilt in the way that feels good to us. Susan, yes, those pictures worked well. Great. Rianne, works for you, posting the pictures. Good. Debbie's asking, where's the community tab on YouTube? Do any of you want to chime in? On my desktop, it's literally like if I go to someone's channel, you'll see playlists, videos, community. And on my phone, there's fewer choices, but it's also there. Right under kind of the main profile picture of a channel, you'll see community. And it looks actually a lot like social media. YouTube is officially a search engine, but it looks like social media in that I can post things there and you can post things there and we can have a conversation. So it's a great place to do that. I'm becoming more comfortable on the YouTube platform and using it more and more. Susan is saying it popped up for me. You know, chances are if you follow my channel and if you have notifications turned on, that you'll literally get a notification like we do on social media also. Again, I'm learning it too, so I experimented with that. I turned it on and I specifically followed a few fellow quilters that I know use the community tab so I can kind of see how that looks as a consumer, and that helps me know how to deliver things well. Goat Quilter, gotta go to her YouTube page, not your home page. Okay, good point. So you have to go to Stitched by Susan, to my channel, to get my community tab. If you go to your own page, you'll get your own community tab. I think that's how it works anyways. Okay, you guys. Janice, doesn't show up on my desktop. It's a great question for Google, right? Everyone's device can be a little different. If you've got pop-ups blocked or things like that, right? That can make a difference too. And I can't know that from here. So that's a great question for Google. How come YouTube community is not showing up? And it'll probably give you some things to try. Okay, a few things before we go. Number one, I'm coming live to you every day, Monday through Friday for the next 3 weeks or so. Send me your questions, send me your thoughts, send me your dilemmas, and let's talk about them. In general, it'll just be things that either I'm working on that day or just things that occur to me that I think are of interest to you. And that leads into tomorrow's topic. Oh, and look, Angie's saying it's called posts on my devices, not community. Interesting, and I wonder if that's different in different countries. I'm not sure. I've only seen it as community, so thanks for sharing that, Angie, because that may help people to find it, so I appreciate that. Okay, tomorrow's topic, I think, subject to change, is going to be lighting when you're working on a fabric that's incredibly difficult to see. So I've got some kind of, less severe, more severe, and most. I've got 3 options for you, and the final one is my foolproof, never fails way of being able to see where I'm driving when I'm quilting, even though the fabrics and the threads don't lend themselves to that. So tune in for that one. If you have enjoyed this, do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know when I am live each day. I sure appreciate you taking the time to join me, and I will catch up with you tomorrow.